Well, you made it to this last section of this consultation workshop. I think you are excited to improve your consultation skills and bring them to the world. The world certainly needs more consultation. In this part, we're going to discuss where to find more consultation in our lives. First, a little review of Part 5. To many of us, consultation seems elusive. There's still too much power and democratic decision-making out there, and many people cannot recognize the difference between the three styles. In fact, some of my critics have pointed out that power and democratic styles are natural human behaviors, so there is no point in trying to change consultation. And this is why it is important to recall the consultative moments in our lives. When we make these recollections, we realize that humanity can rise above its power and democratic ways. We just need to make consultation more known, more acceptable, and more popular. It should be regarded as a preferred way to work together. Too often, we find ourselves in a non-consultative environment. It is easy to disparage the people who seem difficult to work with. But we should remember that many of them belong to the walking wounded. They are psychologically damaged and are not ready to fully embrace consultation. But maybe we can move them a little closer to a little more consultation. An important tool to better our consultation skills is to revisualize our meetings. What worked well? What could we do better next time? And Part 5 introduced us to this important quote. Seek first to understand. There's a lot of positive energy when we apply this quote in our lives. Finding a consultative culture. We also want this, don't we? But there is a reality we have to contend with. Unfortunately, many people live in a power or democratic world. Some of them have found success with these styles, so they are reluctant to change their ways. Others have been deflected too many times with power and democracy. They are reluctant to participate. Yet, much of the world too easily claims it is already operating in a consultative style. We know it is not. In Part 4, I offered a psychological hypothesis. The level of consultation in any group is based on the person with the second worst consultation skills. So with more people in power and democracy mindsets and the high threshold to attain a consultative group, finding a consultative group seems more unlikely than likely. So where do we go if we want to join a consultative culture to enhance our consultation skills? Well, have I got a project for you. Let's build a new democracy. Since 1997, I have been developing and promoting a new democracy. This democracy is called Tiered Democratic Governance, or TDG for short. I believe this democracy will move the world to a better place. The TDG is actually a fairly big concept, and I could talk about it for a very long time. But here, I will provide a few brief points to give you an idea. First, there are no political parties in the TDG. Second, while there are still elections in the TDG, there are no election campaigns. TDG representatives are voted for based mostly on their previous service to the community and the TDG. Third, voters are trained to vote for good character and capacity for governance. Voting this way might sound like an unattainable utopia, but TDG electoral units are about 200 residents in a natural neighborhood. In this way, neighbors are voting for neighbors. Neighbors will more likely vote for someone of character and capacity than for someone of lesser qualities. One more basic thing about the TDG. It is a culture of consultation. The early TDG builders will be deliberately and consciously building this culture. If they don't, then there is no point in building the TDG. that new electoral structures are not enough by themselves. The TDG needs that culture of consultation to teach the world a new way of resolving our challenges. One of the wonderful things about the early TDG are the people who will not be joining this new movement. The early TDG offers no societal status, influence, or power for its members. So people who want these things will not join the TDG. People who have a desire to dominate and control others will not join the TDG. People who are too deep in their addictions will not join the TDG. People who are seeking their happiness in things and fun will not join the TDG. People with unproductive identities and value systems will prefer to continue with those activities, so they will not join the TDG. In essence, the nature of the early TDG means non-consultative people will have little interest in the early TDG. So most of the power and democratic people have been filtered out. In other words, those people joining the early TDG will more likely find consultative-minded people than society at large, and they will like working with the people they find there. The TDG is a new kind of democracy. It will redefine the relationship between the people and their governors. It will be a kinder, wiser democracy, the democracy many of us yearn for. So who will be the early builders of this democracy? I see two kinds of early TDG builders. The first are the people who recognize our current democracies are broken. These people no longer want the conflict, contempt, and contention in our public discourse. They want our elected representatives working more collaboratively, more consultatively, and more consensually. And these people are also willing to work on this better way. My TDG book explains how they can build the TDG for only 10 hours a month. You might belong to this group. The second group of early TDG builders are those people who want to practice and enhance their consultation skills. The early TDG is a place where you can work with other consultative-minded people. You might be one of these people. So the TDG becomes our forum to practice consultation for both democracy builders and consultation builders to work together. Let's think about this for a second. If we are in a group of people with strong consultation skills and attitudes, or have a strong desire to acquire them, our second weakest consultative link is actually quite strong. When we have this culture already in our fledgling TDG, we have a great basis for consultation. With that base, we also have a forum to improve our consultation skills. To explain, let's digress to high school basketball. If we want to get better at basketball skills, we should practice with, and play against players of our own ability. If we practice and play with players of lower ability, our basketball skills won't improve that much. Coming back to the early TDG, the filtering out of non-consultative people will have the TDG builders working with people of similar skills in consultation. They will improve their consultation skills more in this forum than anywhere else in the real world. Taking this workshop, reading my books, and meeting with like-minded people are not enough to bring more consultation to the world. The early TDG builders need something to work on to improve their skills. So I have let them write their own local TDG constitution. Other than 4 salient features, each TDG has a freedom to design its own constitution as it sees fit. So, consultative-minded neighbors will gather together for this task. I recommend meeting every 2 weeks in someone's home. The meeting should last about 90 minutes. Designate one person as a writer who will prepare the written draft and send it by email. Builders should review this draft to prepare for the next meeting. It might take 6 months to write this local TDG constitution. I have provided a template for early TDG builders to follow. There are about 50 clauses that will require an exchange of knowledge, experience, and wisdom to reach a consultative decision. If the early builders want to write their own constitution in their own way, they can go ahead. Just keep the 4 salient features. When compared to issues of the real world, the TDG constitution clauses will not be as life or death. For example, how many elected positions are required in this local TDG? Some people might prefer 4, others 7. Have a discussion with people giving their reasons. 4, 5, 6, 7. The actual number is not that important, but how we find that number is. Clauses that are not likely to generate life or death feelings will be good practice to learn how to go with the rising consensus than to fight to get our opinions implemented. You will learn to speak quietly and clearly. Everyone should have a say on each particular clause. Then you will learn to listen to contrary perspectives on each clause. Here's where you can practice. Seek first to understand. Like asking this question: I don't quite understand your perspective. Can you explain it a little more? You will develop an instinct for recognizing when a sound consensus is forming. There will be a natural time to stop discussing and move to formalize the decision. And, of course, let's revisualize our meetings, trying to figure out what we could do better next time. And given that the Constitution will take at least 5 meetings, it's okay to revisit and make changes to previous clauses. Reflection will allow us to connect all the parts of the local TDG Constitution to each other, just like the many parts of real life are connected to each other. After your local constitution has attained consensus within your group, hold your first election, following the rules set out in your constitution. After the election, your local TDG will be governed mostly by its elected executive committee. I believe your election will have found leaders that can be regarded as from among the best. One of that committee's first tasks will be to retain and enhance the bonds between the executive committee and the general membership. Keep the communications happening. Mail, email, social media, casual conversations in the neighborhood. I recommend holding at least 2 formal meetings a year with some socializing afterward. Analyze the election. What worked well? What didn't? What needs to change? Should your constitution be amended to reflect the changes? And yes, amendment meetings are a good reason to get the membership together. Anticipate amending your constitution every year. To me, that is great practice in TDG governance. Find and train new members. The local TDG should look for more neighbors to join. How does it gently train new members to vote for good character and capacity for governance? Well, that will be something for the current executive committee to figure out. We are deliberately changing a culture for voting. Effecting this change will be good practice for consultation. Remember, the TDG elections have filtered out most of the power and democratic people. Our second weakest link in our executive committee is quite strong. With that strength, our consultation skills will improve. At first, maybe less than 5% of residents are members of their local TDG. But when some of the other 95% see that group working together so well, they will want to join. Some new members will be ready to absorb the TDG culture. They will easily adapt to voting for good character and capacity for governance. A few new members will undoubtedly bring in the old ways of voting, like what's in it for me, or who seems to want the job the most. But after 2 or 3 election cycles, these new members too will be casting wiser votes. Be patient with their maturation. Encourage members to vote. Encourage them to think about wiser voting. All local TDGs start out as independent units. They are not under my or anyone else's jurisdiction. But the goal is to eventually bring all these local TDGs into one TDG system based on the TDG principles. So each local TDG should look to merge with adjacent TDGs. 2 TDGs will enter negotiations with the intention to merger. Each TDG should set up a merger committee, and the 2 committees will work together, bringing each other's knowledge, experience, and wisdom in TDG governments to the negotiating table. The 2 committees will prepare a draft of the new constitution for the merged area. Each committee will be consulting with its executive committee, who will be providing feedback on the new constitution. The executive committees should be providing the membership with information about the merger negotiations. In the end, the new constitution must be approved by 1. The 2 merger committees, 2. The executive committees of the 2 TDGs, and 3. The membership of the 2 TDGs. If the merging sounds like an impossible task, you might be viewing this project through the lens of power or democratic thinking. But with the consultation skills and attitudes being at a much higher level than the rest of the world, the merger will go faster than what your previous experience is telling you. And there will be more satisfaction with this final result. Remember, these 2 TDGs have filtered out a lot of power and democratic thinking. When the merger is complete, it's okay for the merged area to get used to the new rules. But maybe the merged area just might want to merge again with another adjacent TDG. The executive committee of the merged TDG will decide to rest a bit or forge ahead. As a TDG gets bigger and its consultative skills are being recognized, it will start interacting with the politics of the real world. Initially, these interactions will be of an advisory nature. But the real world will start looking closer at what the TDG is saying and doing and offering. More citizens join the TDG, and they are shaped by its actions. Eventually, it becomes more obvious that the TDG is a replacement system for Western democracy. Chapter 6 of my TDG book has more details of how these local independent TDGs developed to eventually transition to assume responsibility and authority for societal governance. In the end, the TDG must earn the trust and respect of the citizenry to gain this legitimacy. So why should you build this TDG democracy thing? If you are still with this workshop, I think you are a person who really wants to put more consultation into the world. Earlier, I mentioned that power and democratic thinkers will not be that interested in the early TDG, leaving the TDG field for consultative-minded people. By building the TDG, you will find a form that is much more consultative than what you have experienced before. Your consultation skills will improve. You are talking and listening. You are solving problems. You are collaborating. You are being creative with new solutions. You will take those new skills to other places in your life. You are having fun. TDG meetings become events you look forward to. When we have such enjoyable meetings, we are of happier service to this organization. We will have less of a need for useless distractions to feel good about ourselves. We all need more positive relationships in our life. Think of the kind of people that come into this early TDG. You are going to like being around them. I have already mentioned the stronger community. Long before the TDG has any real-world responsibility, it will already have a positive effect on the people around it. Neighbors caring for neighbors. As you are improving your consultation skills and building more positive relationships, a new democracy is being built. Today, you might not believe it is possible to build this new democracy. But 2 years from now, your TDG work might have you believing in this vision. I like watching the PBS show Finding Your Roots. This show takes celebrity guests through the genealogy, digging through at least 3 generations. Sometimes the guests find their ancestors were just ordinary people struggling to survive and fend for their families. Sometimes the ancestors were nefarious people, family abandoners, slave owners, criminals, corrupt politicians. Sometimes the ancestors were people who accomplished great things, war heroes, social activists, builders of business and communities. Imagine your descendants doing their own Finding Your Roots. They find your name associated with building the 21st century democracy from which they are now benefiting. In other words, building the TDG can be your legacy. This is the end of part 6. To summarize, building the TDG will be a good place to find a consultative culture. In the TDG, we can learn to speak our truths quietly and clearly, and we will also listen better to others. In the TDG, we can take the meek approach and learn what meek people can accomplish together. The meek will not be overpowered by dominance and arrogance in the early TDG. In the TDG, we can learn to seek first to understand. We really need more practice in this principle. And after each TDG meeting, we should revisualize what we could do better for next time. And now we have come to the end of Dave Volek's consultation workshop. Here are this workshop's 3 most important points. We have defined consultation as combining knowledge, experience, and wisdom of other people. When this definition becomes better known and applied, individuals and organizations who are more in the power and democratic ways of operating will no longer be able to claim that they employ consultation in their decision making. We would like more consultation in our lives, but our society has a lot of mental illness. If we want to move the world forward, we must use our consultative approach to effect positive change in the people around us. Imagine when many people are making a similar life journey. Building the TDG is a great forum to deliberately and consciously develop a culture of consultation. Later, we can move our TDG consultative experience outside of the TDG. Congratulate yourself for completing this workshop. Our busy world has so many distractions for us, and you took the time to learn about some new ways. You are free to pass this workshop to family, friends, colleagues, and acquaintances. Use email, social media, and conversations to tell them of your find. Maybe you will be working with them later with a more consultative approach. Here's the link to find this workshop: tierdemocraticgovernance.org/education.php. Thanks again. I wish you all the success in your consultative endeavors. Let's all work together to make a better world. Humanity has such great potential. You have a part to play.